welcome to Strike a Match. I am your host, Terry Finnegan Lynch, and I'm here in partnership with Enlightenment Radio to emphasize that positivity is everything. And, you know, when I get prepared for this program, there's this deep, heartfelt feeling of appreciation and gratitude that there are, shakers and movers out there saying that we want to carry a message. We want to influence how people think and then how they behave and feel in their lives. And, to partner with SM Enlightenment Media and to be on their radio station every Sunday is just a tremendous opportunity for me as a life coach. I love that I work with families. We're coming up on Father's Day. There can be a lot of, great things that can happen on Father's Day, and then there's a lot of heartache. It's not always easy to celebrate holidays within a family. And if you're in pain, I'm holding space for that. If you need to talk, please reach out to me. My website has a calendar. You can book an appointment. They're free. But if you're struggling, that's what life coaches do. We are there for that conversation. And if there's a connection, great. Strike a match. Just if you're feeling anything right now coming up on Father's Day, whether it be with your dad or your husband and your children or, whatever, and you want to talk about it, seek out familylifestylequest.com and make a complimentary appointment with me and see if we can make it feel better before Father's Day actually arrives. Okay, so what do I do here on Strike a Match? Well, Strike a Match is about two things. One is igniting a curiosity about how to change things in your life. Sometimes it's motivated by trauma. Sometimes it's just a little tiny spark that says, oh, I'd love to do this a little bit different. So the strike is, can you take action? And taking action is actually listening to this broadcast. It's about being curious about what positivity can do in our lives and how this coaching model that I'm a part of is an answer to many, many unmet needs. We never as coaches dismiss psychiatry or therapy or counseling. We are an adjunct to anything that you're already doing. And if there's nothing that's going on for you to move the needle, coaching may be a wonderful way. You don't have to be in crisis to get support. You can just need a new perspective. So in my show, I bring to you four, but the three anchors of my program are a fun fact, a positive tip, and a cartoon. So tonight we're going to start with a positive tip. No, excuse me. We're going to start with the fun fact. I put myself ahead of schedule. So this is from the INLP Center. It's a life coaching resource, and they have a study of the benefits of life coaching, because I don't want you to take my word for it. There's lots of ways out there to verify that life coaching can make a difference. So this is their number 2 research time-tested fun fact. So a different perspective. We are often consumed by our own opinions, life experiences, and way of thinking. A life coach can provide a new and often helpful perspective on things. So it's very simple language. It's like, yeah, no duh, I get it. But it's really true. The first statement in that fun fact about our perception and experience and therefore a way of thinking, our opinions of things can get really rooted in our habits, how we actually behave and respond to the world. And they're very hard to break. They're so accessible, and we repeat them over and over and over. And it's like, I don't even know how to consider something different. And that's one of the beautiful things about a life coach relationship, is that we gently introduce a new perspective, because for me, I'm trained in habit change, which is opinions, perspective, and behavior. And we look at what's not serving you. And, the funny thing is that what we do in our 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and beyond, we generally created before we were in middle school. Between like age 6 and 14 is when we started to create our mindset about how we respond to the world. And of course, I say this probably in every episode, because it is the root of why we do what we do. We do it because we created it in our response to ourselves, to others, in the world when we were very little. And if you're a parent, you know that when you have little ones making their decisions at age 6 to 14, they don't have a lot of resources. And we didn't either. But once we anchor our system of how we respond to ourselves, others, in the world, it becomes pretty solid. And we keep using it over and over and over again with some little tweaking here and there, but it ultimately stays the same. So it's not surprising that by the time we get into our 20s and 30s and beyond, it's tired and it's not really working all that well, but it's our go-to. So perspectives like this could be how we respond to the world as I like to control things. So everything I have is organized and explainable, and I march things out, and my home is meticulous, and my desk is perfect. And then you have a second child and everything falls apart. Your system doesn't work anymore. Why? Well, because there's a piece missing, and life coaches help you find that. Or you could have, a victim hero mentality, or you could have a passive aggressive mentality. You could have a bully mentality. You could have a recluse mentality. And all of these ways that we respond to the world are not wrong until they stop serving us in the way that we deserve to be. So what a life coach does in a very, very safe place is look at what are your systems, what's working, what's not, and how do we shift in a gentle, loving way into a new idea. And, having an advocate with you on that quest really makes it possible. We can't necessarily change a lot with just a decision. We really need to go back into our programming, identity, and beliefs to really make sustainable change. And that's what coaches are trained to do. So the fun fact for today is that coaches help you change your perspective. And just take a minute right now and think about your 3 most go-to behaviors. So when life is going well, how do you respond? Do you celebrate? Do you say, well, that's good, but I'm going over here? Do you panic because it's going well and, oh my gosh, I'm not accustomed to that? If we actually started to look at, be the observer of how we respond to stuff, you might say, that doesn't really serve me. So you're at work and your boss comes in and dumps a ton of stuff on your desk, and now it's virtual, so it's probably a little bit easier to avoid. But, there's that pile, and it's not even your job description, but there's the pile. What do? You say, oh, thank you. I'll get it done as soon as possible. or you say, all right, I'll get it done. There's this aggression, this resentment. Or it's like, wow, another challenge. This is great. I have to avoid my family for the next 4 days while I get it done. And if we just start looking at these things, then we can see a pattern that can be established about how we respond to the world and what our operating system is. And that is what coaches can help you see and revise and implement a new way. So I love that I have a coach who can hear me out on my patterns. You know, the funny thing is that we don't really outgrow coaches. We may not need them all the time. I love having one all the time. Life is complicated, especially coming into COVID, through COVID, out of COVID, readapting to socialization, looking at what I want to create in my life, being an entrepreneur myself. That's a huge thing that's going on for me. And, you know, I'm a better person for you if I have a coach. So it means that we can better serve those within our lives that need us the most if we're getting the support personally that allows us to see the perspective that we're operating in and offer a new one, something that is more creative and inviting and inspirational. So that's our fun fact for today. So thank you for hearing me out on that. I love to go to my, let's see, we'll do my comedy corner next, because this is the thing that holds us back the most. Here we go. If you want to reach your goals, you must shrink the size of your butt. So, I mean, how many times do you say butt in your language, in your conversations? It is like the most common contradiction that we can say. We're like, I love you, but I think you're great, but. So the word but is a sneaky way of getting what you want. You throw this compliment out to somebody and you negate it with the word but. So that's in our operating system. We're like, oh, I love my life, but I hate my life, but. So when we pay attention to this tiny word, we can really see that we're contradicting ourselves in our relationships all the time. When we communicate with others and we want to celebrate something positive, yet there's this other thing that we really value more, then we use the word but. And it's not really a cartoon, it's a truth. But if you really want to achieve your goals, you have to minimize the size of your butts. And how do we do that? Well, being the observer of how often we say it and why it's so important in that dialogue that you're having, and then rephrasing things. So, you know, if you have a teenager and you want to say, you know, I love you, but your room is a mess, you could instead say, your room's a mess and I love you. Is there anything that we can do together to clean it up? What do you need? And how can I help you? So when we are aware of the buts in our life, And that's again, a perception. That's our opinion. That's our control. Then we can rearrange the sentence, rearrange our thought processes, practice it. So in the work that I do, we look at what's called mental rehearsals, and we practice having new conversations with people that subtract the word but. It's deliberately. This is an actual exercise, because the word but diminishes everything that you feel you're offering at the beginning of the conversation. Because whenever you say but, it negates whatever you said prior to it. And so it's really an important transition to move away from the word but and the word should. The word should also is one of those words that presumes judgment and expectation, and it's hurtful. You should do this. You should have already done this. We say it to ourselves. Where we use but and should against our own personal self-care and opinions about ourselves. And if we don't love ourselves, then it's really, really hard to love others authentically. So the principles behind our language is that our perception, our opinion, our expression of ourselves is rooted in the system, our operating system, and it's expressed in language. So when you combine the two, when we're actually looking at what am I thinking, what are my systems, how am I operating here, and then we look at the language that expresses it, and you have a coach that supports that investigation, guess what? Change is possible. You can elevate your life. It works that an advocate, like a life coach, can really change your ways. So I'd like to now introduce my positive tip for a better life.
Positive tips for a better life with Terry Finnegan Lynch.
When I ask why, I may not find an answer. But when I ask how, I will. Try this on. Why does everything go south on me? Or how does everything go south on me? Which one lets you actually change your life? I'm a health and life coach, and these are Terry's positive tips for a better life.
WSME.
So when I was going to school for coaching, I really got attached to this paradigm that how is more meaningful than why. When we ask why, which a lot of my clients start off like, why does this always happen to me? Why don't I understand? Why don't I get it? Why isn't my son doing better? Why is my husband so mad at me? When we are looking for the answer to the question, why, it's very unlikely that you're going to know. It's not qualifiable. You can imagine, you can kind of answer it. But when we instead ask how, rather than ask why, ask how. So let's phrase those again. How can I help my son? How is it that my husband is in this place that we're not getting along? How can I be a better parent? How can I be a better wife? How can I be more engaged with my friends? How do I support my mother more? How is, there's an answer to how. It's an application. And life coaching really allows us to look at that and say, well, we could do this, we could do that. We could change your thinking. We could change your emotional response. We could change your language. So why is kind of like a dead end. It's just this pit of needing to know. It's not, the answers aren't always there. But when we go to how, I should rephrase that. and when we go to how, not but, and when we go to how. So I'm always aware of when my mouth goes to go, but. I can feel it. I want to stop and just consider, what if I said and? So when we talk about why and the fact that it's sometimes a dead end, an empty pit, and we ask, what if I said how? How could I support my family more? How could I be happier? How could I do this? How could I do that? Then information shows up. There's information from the universe, from your soul, from friends and family, from your coach on how to make a shift, to make a better position that you want to come from. So I love this. The brainiacs, they keep asking why. Those folks that I coach that just are just deep, deep, deep thinkers. They're always trying to figure it out. And asking how is a very hard transition for them. So we do it together. So if you're a thinker, if you're a problem solver, if you need to know, if, research and understanding and Googling all kinds of things and reading all kinds of stuff is your go-to, asking how will be a real challenge. But it is and there I go, and it's really revealing a new way of you discovering opportunities that you're actually looking for in the question why, but are actually found in how. So I love the consideration, the paradigm, that how is more meaningful than why. And if you're curious about it, reach out to me. We can talk about it. Send me an email. And reach out and book an appointment on my website and have a conversation with me. And so now I would like to close this part of our show, Strike a Match. I hope there's been some curiosity about how we can change our lives through just that one little consideration, curiosity that maybe a coach is a pretty cool thing. And reach out to any of my guests that have co-hosted with me or myself. And right now we're going to segue into our advertisements. These folks are so important to the wellness of SM Enlightenment Media. Thank you for tuning in and listening to their broadcast, and we'll see you on the other side. Welcome back. Thank you for staying tuned for the second half of the show, the match. I love this part. And I've loved especially these more recent episodes where I'm meeting coaches that I've not known before. They're not my classmates from school, but they're people that I've met through social media, referrals and all. And the reason that I'm very proud and happy to introduce Keith Senzer today is he has this beautiful mission to help teens, and he has a language in his outreach that says, I help teens find their true north, follow it through with their words, actions to create a more loving, accepting, responsible, and committed adult who has the power to ensure their future success and heal the world. And the reason that I felt so connected to that is one of my clients wrote a testimonial, and he wrote about our relationship is that I was his true north. So, when we connect that way, that's the match. Welcome, Keith, to Strike a Match.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate
it. You're welcome. So I've listened to your podcasts and your videos on LinkedIn. So dedicated and consistent in your message. I admire your diligence in just being out there and being available to young people. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Very, very glad to be here. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. So I always love to start and ask, what brought you to this place where you're in service of young people? I know a little bit, but I'd love for you to share with our audience about this important journey you're on.
Sure. We have time, right?
Oh, yeah. We got 20, 30 minutes, so let's go for it.
Yeah, I'll try to keep it. I'll stick to the important part. Basically, I struggled as a teen. I got bullied a little bit. I was definitely socially awkward. And I also definitely had ADHD as a kid that wasn't diagnosed because, when I was a kid, that wasn't really something that was prevalent. We didn't know much about it, right? So I remember, I barely got out of high school with like a low 70s average. And I always wanted to be a child psychologist. And my parents, God bless them, you're really good with people. And, I think they saw me struggling in school and recognized what it would require for me to go back and get my master's and my PhD and all that. So go into the people business. You're really good with people. And I listened. And I was in the hotel business for many years. And then I owned a couple of catering halls. So that's what I did pretty much my entire life. And in 2014, I have a daughter with anxiety disorder. I have a son with ADHD. My wife's an educator. I've been so involved in just the whole education side of raising children and just seeing the struggles that my kids have gone through. And, thankfully, with my wife's help, we were able to really raise them to be really successful, healthy, mentally healthy kids. And I just said, you know what? This is what I always wanted to do. I need to find a way to do this. So I went back and I got my coaching certification and I sold my business in 2014. And I've been doing this ever since. And really, like, it's just, I love this. Like, there's not, I'm sure you feel the same way, right? It's not work. We get up in the morning and it's like, great, who do I get to serve today? What kids do I get to impact today? And that's it's the greatest gift, I think, that I've been given, the opportunity to share my knowledge and support these teens.
Yeah, most of us come to our, specialty from our own journey. I raised my children in an alcoholic, violent home, and I was the problem. My kids weren't. They were wiser than me. But there was also this quest that my kids asked for me to help families. It was my 16-year-old son's ask. It's like, Mom, can you help families avoid this crisis? And that was 15 years ago. It took me a long time to actually pull it together. But the reward, the connection, the simplicity of our work. We go to work. It's not a struggle. It's instinctive. It's natural.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a journey, right?
Say again.
I said it's our journey. We had to experience what we experienced to get to this point. So it makes us do what we do.
Exactly. And so the next question that I liked is, where are you located?
I'm in New York.
In New York, that's right, upstate New York. Yes.
I'm on Long Island.
Oh, you are.
My accent doesn't get away.
My boys both went to Colgate, so I automatically go up north.
I actually went to school by you. I went to school in Rhode Island. I love Rhode Island.
Oh, I love Rhode Island. I'm not a native. I'm a Massachusetts girl. I still drive like one. I call myself a masshole because I still drive like one. Yeah, just traffic. I just can't handle it. But so when you reach out and people reach out to you, and someone says no, what do you find to be the reason behind that?
It's interesting. I think Many times, I think the two things I struggle with the most with those conversations, I'm working with kids, right? I'm working with your teenager. I'm not an adult. I'm not working with adults, or I'm not an executive coach, right? So a lot of times they're looking for, am I a social worker? Am I a therapist? And I'm not. But I always try to explain, it's my experience that's really going to make a difference. And this business, especially with teenagers, it's so much about referral based. I mean, if you look, I don't do any advertising. Everything I do on social media is through me. I'm not, what you see is what you get. I don't put out this fancy videos and try to get people to book me and use me. It's, everything I do is through people I speak to and people that recommend me. And, but I think, the biggest challenge is definitely, what are your qualifications? Because they don't understand what coaching is. A lot of adults are still just, even though it's been around for so long and it's finally starting to pick up and get some legs under it, right? I still think there's people that don't really understand it. So when it's working with your kid, that's a struggle. And I think sometimes it's the financial piece, right? Like we charge what we feel we need to charge to be able to serve the best serve. But I do think that's changing. And I think especially with the youth, because the stigma around youth mental health, it was so big. Kids didn't want to talk about it. And I think now being able to say, I have a coach, not saying I have a therapist. I mean, listen, I work in tandem with so many therapists where we work with the kids together. And I always say this, I can't deal with the why, I deal with the what, right? Like I can help you move forward.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily, I can have you work with this therapist and they can explore all the past. I can link the past to the present, but we're going to take most steps forward. And what are we going to do to change now? I don't care about what happened in your past because it's not my expertise. Right. So I think that I think with youth, being able to say I'm working with a coach sounds a little less intimidating to them. So I think it's starting to open up the conversation that teens will talk about their mental health. And that's huge because when one teen talks about it, they give permission to all those other teens to talk about it. And then we can actually see what's going on and help them and get to them and support them and give them the tools they need.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I saw a post in a group and a woman asked, has anybody's family's experience using a life coach to help their kids? And a whole litany of parents wrote, best thing that ever happened. My son still has a psychiatrist and a therapist, but the life coach makes a difference. And, I think what is beautiful about what we do is we don't have the clinical boundaries that says, I need to be sterile. There has to be this wall between us. But in actuality, we get to truly share that journey that brought us to this in the first place. And we've been trained how to move thought and behavior into better habits and outcomes. And coaching was for the elite. And, people say, I can't wait for coaching to be, covered by insurance. And for me, I'm like, I'm not really sure that's a good thing because when we're really affording it ourselves, when there's skin in the game.
Just going to say that, yeah.
Right. And it feels like a luxury, but the outcome is quite impressive. So I'm not looking necessarily for coaching to become part of that medical model. I think it's really good that it stands on its own. It does mean that it's available to those that can afford it, which in its sense is kind of discriminatory. But, if we as coaches can make a big enough footprint, then we can be philanthropic and offer services for less fortunate. But we need those that can afford it to bring their world to us so that we can help them. So when people do say yes, so when your kids are referred to you from another kid, what's their greatest relief when they start working with you?
I think honestly, it's having it's having somebody to talk to that's an adult, that's not their parents. Really, like a place to share. Like even my kids. I mean, I'm so close with my kids, and we talk about everything. But I just know there are certain things that my kids won't tell me, and I'm okay with that. They'll tell my sister-in-law, or they'll tell somebody else in the family, and I'm fine. I don't need to know. But just knowing that they have that safe space and somebody to talk to when there's something on their mind. Mm-hmm. So I think for me, that's a space. I try to create that sacred trust space with those things that look like, and I tell them, I'm not your mom, I'm not your dad. I'm not going to tell them, if you tell me something really scary, like you're going to harm yourself, we're going to have a conversation with them together. We're going to let them know. But, if you're sharing something with me that's going on in your life, you're doing drugs, you're smoking, something you shouldn't be doing, I'm not going to tell them. We're going to have a conversation. And if it gets to a point where I feel like they need to know, you're going to know that. But I think it's just that other person to talk to, like those, because the one common thing I get all the time, I always end the sessions with, what was your biggest takeaway? Was this helpful, right? And it's always, for me, it was just being able to talk to somebody, be able to just say how I feel and have somebody listen and reflect it back and give me a different perspective and a different way of looking at it, or a strategy or a tool on how to deal with it for next time. That seems to be the common theme. And I think that's just what teams need, right? They're I think you said it earlier, right? You alluded to it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I was like, that was my fun fact.
And those ages, like they're so malleable during that time period. It's like, that's why if I can get to them when they are that 12 to 28, right? When their brains are still developing and they're starting to develop those belief systems and whatnot, it's so important. And if we can get to it, then they become much stronger, better adults, and they don't have to deal with a lot of the things that we both went through as we were growing up.
Yep, for sure. I have, I'm a family life coach because I feel that it's kind of easy to point fingers that there's this problem child or problem parent. But I think that puts too much of the burden on that person to be the problem and the solution, because I think that everyone contributes to the mess. So I've had young people work with me and suggest to their parents to work with me after they made their move and found their way out of some patterns and stuff that weren't working well for them. They suggested to their parent, hey, Mom, well, you should give this a try. And I love healing a family. That's my quest. And siblings, parents, elders, there's a relationship that we all have with each other, and a reaction to each relationship within will affect how we work with others in our life going outward. So if you're really mad at your brother because of his addiction or whatever it might be, you're going to treat other people who disappoint you in a very similar way. So yes, there was trauma and a reasonable response to that kind of experience, and it will affect how you perceive more neutral experiences because it's your pattern. So I love working with the relationships. Do you find that you have siblings that come in and help work with you?
It's once in a while. I think it's more what I end up doing is once in a while I'll have a sibling work with me. A lot of times they're a little leery, right? Because the client I'm working with, right, the brother or the sister, they're I know so much about what's going on, and sometimes it involves a sibling. So, but what I do a lot is, like, if I'm having a conversation with a teen about, their communication's bad with their father or their mother, right? I'll give them strategies on how to better communicate. I will call the parents and say, listen, so-and-so is going to come and talk to you this week about communication. Like, I need you to listen. I need you to hear. Like, I will let them know. I just need you to be open. I need you to give them the space they need, because, it's like I'm getting them to make this big step, which is hard for them to do, and I can make sure it succeeds, right? Because I know it will. I know if, and the parents appreciate that too. So in many ways, not like you where I'm coaching the family many times everybody, whether it's together or separately, but you try to make sure that that dynamic is intact, because I think it's really important that the parents give the kids the space they need, to be able to say what they have to say or do what they want to do. Otherwise, I'm setting them up for failure.
Right. Yes, it's a very sensitive place to try a new strategy, and then it, doesn't land well. Then you're like,
Right.
well, my old strategy works better.
Yeah.
I'd rather be angry. So,
Right.
And that, I think, is what life coach allow more accessibility to change, because we get to drop a dime to a parent and say, this would be well received if you just listen.
Right.
And, they may not have considered that just listening would be as challenging as it can be. And so when we remind them and we invite them into the solution, it supports the child and it supports the parent. So it's wonderful. So I also like to ask, when you mentioned, you always ask your clients, what's your takeaway? What's your aha? We call it in my little world. So what's kind of like that heartfelt experience that you've had with someone that their world got better from working with you?
Yeah. I mean, I've had some pretty interesting ones. I mean, I've had a couple of kids I work with that, came out, that were struggling with that. And that was a big deal. And being able to coach them through that and, helping them understand it's okay. I remember I was working with one child who was actually struggling with a eating disorder, and her parents didn't know, and being able to work with her and, get her to have the conversation and get her the help she needed. Because obviously, right, I'm like, that's, I can't treat that. I don't feel comfortable doing that, right? So you need somebody who can specifically deal with this particular issue going on for you.
Right.
And so, those are extreme circumstances, right? But they're pretty significant. I mean, for me, like it felt great having kids, be able to just be who they want to be and not have to worry, and be able to do it in a comfortable and in a safe way. And, and there was a plan, and just watching them do it and actually come back and be like, oh my God, I feel like so liberated. It's like, that was so empowering, right? I don't have this thing on my chest, this weight on me anymore. So, for me, that's always great. But I also do a lot of group coaching. Okay. So for me, the best is watching the kids collectively, right? Like somebody will share something like really, really deep, and all of a sudden the rest of the kids will be like, I do the same thing, or I feel the same way. Because a lot of teens, like, they think they're the only ones going through what they're going through, right? When you're in a group and all of a sudden somebody mentions it, it just, like I said before, it gives permission for them to open up. And that is, I think, that's the best thing about what I love doing with the group coaching with the teens, is because they all start to talk and they start to open up, and they actually build bonds together. They build a relationship because they realize they've gone through the same thing. They're struggling with the same thing. And all of a sudden they feel safe. Right. They don't feel like they're the outlier anymore. They feel like they kind of found their tribe, like other people deal with it. That's a big aha for teens. Us as adults, right? We take that for granted because we know that.
Well, I want to share. So when I came out of my, I was an active alcoholic for 25 years. And so when I got sober and left my husband, who was officially diagnosed as a sociopath, he was a very violent man, I was in a group therapy. So it was not coaching, but it was therapy. And the therapist brought in a batterer, a man who had been a batterer. And I looked at him and I was like, why are you doing this? What are you trying to do to me? And what I learned is that he was proving to me that my hope that my former husband would change was not foolish, because this man he had gone through the training. He had worked on it. He was, saving his marriage. And what he wanted to show me was that I was not a fool for believing that it could be different, even though it never was. And I had to leave. There was a part of me that felt that all that time was wasted, or that I was foolish. And so he specifically brought this example of someone who was able to reinvent themselves. And I don't know that I would have ever healed that perception without that experience in that group. So, and I was 46 years old. So groups are very powerful in revealing parts of ourselves that, we don't know how to understand or how to voice what that loss is. Right. And so with teenagers, there's so many common things, my situation was kind of rare that that I was in a domestically violent marriage for 16 years. But kids, there's their social lives, their academic lives, their sibling lives, there's a lot of commonalities in what they experience. So the group model is very supportive in making things relatable and, hopeful, especially with someone, guiding the conversation like yourself. I think that's where the trust and confidence comes from.
Thank you. I agree.
Yeah, it's great. So you do guest speaking. Tell me about your footprint.
So I do a few things. I do one-on-one coaching. I do group coaching. My two biggest initiatives right now is I do youth mastermind groups. So, we meet twice a month for an hour and a half. I do about 15 kids in a group. I try to run 3 or 4 consecutively, and it's a year-long program. And it's just every other week is some type of topic. Sometimes it's something they want to discuss. Sometimes it'll be acceptance, the power of words, being in flow, playing the victim, executive functioning, diversity and acceptance, things of that nature. That's my big initiative. And the other thing is I'm also very involved with a non-for-profit that's focused on anti-bullying and youth empowerment.
Yes.
And our ultimate goal is to take this work to the marginalized communities that can't afford to pay for this type of work, and bring it to those communities, train community leaders within those communities to deliver that work, and then get corporations to go ahead and, so we can fundraise to send some kids to college that can't afford to go to school. Right. So that's our much deeper purpose. That's called the Sofia Balsamos Foundation. It's tsvf.org. It's a phenomenal organization, and I've been with them for years, since their inception. And, it's all about anti-bullying. It's so aligned with my vision for my work about helping kids and teens find their true north. Because like I say, it's all about, I feel like our generation has not done a great job. We're just looking at what's going on, right? We're so polarized. Right. We need to get these kids to understand that it's okay to have different views, but you got to find common ground together to talk to each other and respect each other's views and find ways to support one another so that's best for the greater good. And if we can get to their generation, that's how we heal the world. And I think there's hope for the future.
Well, I so much appreciate that you're invested in, outreach and, educating, training the community that serves our youth. We're already at the end of the show. Can you believe how fast that goes by? Thank you so much for being here, Keith, for being the inspiration for young people, for taking your journey from food service and catering to helping children, young adults find their way, their true north. And it's really an honor to have spent this time with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Wow, it goes by so fast. Very important work that Keith is doing. Pay attention to those social medium handles that give direction about what he's doing. And And, if you're a young adult in need of support, reach out to Keith. If your family needs support, reach out to me. I bless you with a happy Father's Day coming up. If that's a hard time for you, don't deal with it alone. Reach out. Any one of our coaches would be happy to talk with you. And I especially will be here for you. So I am Terry Finnegan Lynch. It has been a delight to be in service of you and our community of coaches. Have a wonderful night. Thanks for being here.